Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Terusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into machine minds. Hello and welcome to Machine Minds. I'm your host, Greg Terusian, founder of Samson Rose, your robotics talent search partner. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Grace Matelich, co-founder of Bloomscroll. She's a humanist, futurist, who's nurturing a number of projects around human and AI alignment. Thanks for being on the show today, Grace.
Thanks so much for having me, Greg.
Pleasure. Let's jump into it. So let's rewind because I want to hear about, you've been involved in a number of areas and I just want to share a lot of that with the audience. So I want to hear about your path before founding Bloomscroll, because that's obviously the latest project, latest focus, but you've done a ton prior to that. So can you give us a background?
Of course. I studied philosophy in college and then started my career actually in the mental health space. I worked for the National Suicide Hotline for 2 years in Montana, where the suicide rate is actually highest in the US. And that's really where I learned a number of my core skills that are still with me today. I learned the importance of running a really tight ship of an operation. I learned the importance of holding space for people and giving them my presence and my attention. I learned how to really, really listen and how to connect people to a broader ecosystem of needs and services. And from there, I studied longevity science in graduate school after having some health things of my own. And then I moved into the tech operations space where I worked for a company that uses a tech-enabled service to help older adults find senior living options. And so that was my first time in startup land. And I fell in love with operations and building in a really fast-paced environment, helped take that company from Series A to Series B. And then I was looking for my next big thing and found Invisible Technologies right as they found the AI space, or the AI space kind of found them rather. And they were getting into AI training after operating more as a traditional BPO. And I sort of jumped into the weeds there and figured out, okay, what is this AI training business? This was right when ChatGPT launched after fall of 2022, and people were actually starting to talk about what is a large language model, how might this impact my life, and people really starting to feel the tangible effects of being able to interact with this technology, right? And so I was able to get under the hood of some of this technology and figure out, okay, what do we do? What is human data? What does that even mean? How do we train these models? How do we build an operational machine around training these models that treats humans really well, that generates really amazing data for these models, that sort of aligns both systems, that allows us to be really good thought partners to clients building large language models. And so that was a journey that I was on for the past 2.5 years. I continue to advise in that space. And it's something I'm really passionate about because there are a lot of people involved in the training of large language models still to this day. So many more people than I think the masses realize. And it's kind of like one of the world's biggest group projects. I think, honestly, it's a fun way to frame it. I wish we thought about it that way more, because I think we would get a little more cohesion in the way that we were collectively operating across large language models and the space as a whole.
On that point, do you think it's healthy or a hindrance having so many competing companies working on large language models that aren't open source?
I think the competitive landscape is making things really challenging today. When I first entered the space it was not nearly as competitive as it is today. It wasn't sort of the arms race that people are talking about today, right? It seems like it's more competitive and we're speeding up more and more every day. I do think that sort of power and incentive structure in the space is pushing people to be at risk for cutting corners and not thinking holistically and in a true systems way about what they're creating and what are the second and third order effects of that. I would like to see more horizontal collaboration. It's hard to know how to do that. Like if I could reverse engineer it or go back in time, like maybe we create some AI council that's horizontal where there's like, a true representative from every company, almost like a UN of AI or something, but like a functional UN of AI that gets stuff done. So I do think that the current structure is making it challenging for us to truly create AI for good versus AI for commercialization.
Right. No, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I mean, when you throw so much money at it, like investors are going crazy and like the headlines are obviously every week, every day, it feels like there's something new, something big happening. It's hard to not categorize it or think of it in that arms race kind of thing. You can only just imagine behind the scenes. We've seen the stuff of people leaving because they're concerned about how stuff's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, okay, that's interesting to get your perspective on that. Thank you. And how did your experience helping scale invisible technology shape your views on work and automation and just the LLM and Gen AI space in general?
It was such an incredible crash course in what is AI, how does this work, what's happening under the hood, what's real versus not, because it was so interesting to have this deep experience of helping to create data to train these models and work directly with researchers. Well, there were all these funky narratives happening out in the world that these models are alive and sentient and learning in real time. And this was like 2 years ago, and so those parallel narratives were really interesting.
Is that what happens?
Yeah. In any case, working at Invisible was just such an incredible opportunity to not only learn the AI space, but to get the opportunity to scale a business through hypergrowth in such a multidisciplinary way. So I had the great honor of running operations for a gigantic team, as well as client strategy and contract negotiation. And so I got to wear many, many hats internally and externally in a way that just allowed me to put so many amazing tools in my toolkit that I now feel like I'm able to leverage to do good and create the impact that I want to create in the world. Amazing.
I want to switch gears and talk a bit about Bloomscroll. We've got a lot to talk about, but let's talk about that right now. For those just hearing about Bloomscroll, I want to know or want you to share what it is and who it's for. And then I'm also curious about like that aha moment when it really clicked for you, like, this is the next product, this is what's important.
Yeah. I would say like 5-6 months ago, I was just feeling a little beat down by the whole industry and that competitive nature that we're talking about. And I was feeling like it was hard to do the type of work I wanted to do, the type of good I wanted to do in the world in that structure. And I honestly was thinking of leaving the industry as a whole. I was sort of at a crossroads. Do I just hard pivot and balance out my life by going like to the total other end of the spectrum? Or is there some shift I can make within the space, leveraging the beautiful network that I have and the experiences I've gained to do something else? And so I sat with that for a bit and met some people during that time in my life who had amazing conversations with and helped me open my eyes to the fact that the alignment problem is already very real in our lives. Like people are thinking like, oh, AGI is coming, we're not ready for AGI. And that is very true. However, we also weren't prepared for the change that social media brought into our lives, right? Like nothing prepared us for how social media has transformed our minds and our hearts and our social structures and our attention and the way we spend our time. And the way that recommendation systems work, that is an alignment problem. And so it was like, okay, I really care about AGI readiness, but what if we go back to sort of square one where this all began with the attention economy and the engagement algorithm, and we attack that first systemically? And so that's where the idea of an empowerment algorithm came from. One of my co-founders has been incubating this idea for a while, but hasn't had the right team to work on this with. And I also got someone from DeepMind, Larry Mulstein, who used to run personalization there, to join us as well. And
amazing.
It's a really exciting time to reimagine social. I know a lot of people are reimagining social right now. I'm not the only one. I think I wake up every day to a new Band-Aid solution for the social space. Everything from do 10 push-ups before you can unlock your phone and doom scroll again to like micro learning apps. I think there's like a new micro learning app coming out just about every day. But what we're trying to do is, everyone's used to video-based content and wanting more of this multimodal video-based content. And everyone is used to doing the scroll. Like your thumb just does that now, right? We're not going to try to change that UX, right? But it's like, how do we create amazing video-based content that's truly empowering for people? And it gives people autonomy back. So, when you go onto X, you have no control really, honestly, what comes into your feed. It's a mishmash of everything under the sun. Elon has more control than you do over what's coming to your feed when you open X. But I want, when you open Bloomscroll, you have the ability to tune your feed in our proprietary way to what you intend to see, what you want to see, what's healthy for you. It won't be an infinite feed, because I don't believe in just infinite, endless content. I believe in essentialism and less but better. And it'll be something that puts humans back into the driver's seat and makes technology the tool again. I don't know if you've seen the new season of Black Mirror. I've been thinking about that a lot. I don't know if you know that Black Mirror comes from the phone, like that this is the Black Mirror. So it's like, how do we turn the phone into a light mirror? And how do we device the device?
Got it. Yeah, I'm probably halfway through this season. I love Black Mirror. It's so well done. Amazing. And I love the play on the name as well. We were just talking about offline, Bloomscroll instead of doomscroll. So amazing. Yeah, I mean, I have a very strong opinions about social media right now anyway. So I love hearing about this stuff, and something needs to be done with how we are absorbing information, the types of information that's fed to us. Obviously, recommendation systems is a lot. I've worked on that a lot from a recruiting standpoint over the years. And I don't think people realize, and everyday consumers of this content or of the services that are provided, whether it's Amazon or Netflix or your social media, but like how powerful those systems are and how much data they have from you to just keep you locked in to, most of the times, pardon my language, but it's BS, right? Like you're looking at nonsense. Sometimes I find myself like, the hell am I doing? I've got so many other things to do, so much important stuff, and I'm here wasting time looking at some crap. But anyway, it's great to hear.
We've lost our autonomy a bit too, like our freedom of choice, I think, more than we realize. I heard a comedian recently talk about how, we don't realize we're already living in assisted living. We wake up and an algorithm tells us what to buy, what to read, what to listen to, what to wear, all of these things. Like we're automatons going through our lives just listening to these algorithms, and I think so much more than we even realize. And so I think it's time to wake up to that.
100%. I think when you take a pause and step back and just look at it from that perspective, like what you just said, it's frightening. And some people like, hey, I just want to be told, I want to be kept up to date on whatever the fashion is or what. But really, when you think about it, it's like, I don't really have a choice in this, and then because of what it knows about me, it's feeding me more and more of that just to get me to either spend time or money.
Personalization is the problem. it's the way that these algorithms are designed. There's nothing wrong with curation. In fact, I think curation is the future, and curation is one of the things I'm most excited about Bloomscroll is we will be curating content based on people's intentions and what they want to be seeing. So we can help them basically whittle down the slop of the internet and get the good stuff, right? And so the attention economy and the engagement algorithm are not meant to optimize value for the user. They're meant to optimize time and money spent, right? And so it's like anything to keep you sucked in for longer and longer. And I'm actually working on a blog post right now for my blog about how AI is starting to finesse us. And I've been worried about this for a long time, but the engagement algorithm is starting to hit AI and they're converging. So a few weeks ago, I started noticing that my favorite large language model was gassing me up, like telling me that my ideas were so great and that I was like really getting to the heart of things, or like, oh, what an insightful comment when I was using that language model for ideation. And I was like, that's a little weird. Like, I don't want you to flatter me. Like, I just want to bat ideas around. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I noticed someone in my life who was really using AI deeply for ideation, who just kept thinking that their ideas were like better and better and was going like deeper and deeper into these rabbit holes. And I was like, I don't know, maybe time for a little human perspective. Like maybe we should like test these ideas with other humans and pulled them out of it. And then I did a test with, we inverted the same prompt. I gave a prompt to a language model that said, is devotion above loyalty? This is my thesis on why. And then someone else put in there, I think loyalty is above devotion. This is my thesis on why. Everything was exactly the same otherwise. And the model just tweaked the answers based on what it thought we wanted because we showed our cards. And so we've reached this point now in AI development where the language model's desire to please the user and engage the user is above truth seeking. And that's really concerning to me, that we're not valuing truth seeking above like make me feel good and make me think I'm smart and my ideas are amazing.
We're definitely going away from everything that I thought we were going to talk about, but I love this topic. It's so important. It's dangerous. Really, this is like another aspect of that, but like to just co-sign and agree with whatever the user is putting into it, whether it's an idea, perspective or whatever, because you go the other way. And there's been stuff, with like character AI and people that are in a bad place or talking to AI that isn't designed for whatever they're talking about, whether it's like their health, mental health, the situation they're in or whatever. And you just get this feedback loop that can be so damaging and dangerous, to people's situations, their life, their health. And how do you overcome that? Like when are there going to be like safeguards or flags or interjections if there's something going on that like isn't healthy?
Yeah, AI needs to be actually less human, I think, in this way. Like humans are inherent people pleasers, and we're also very sneaky and deceptive, right, by nature. And we don't want AI to be operating that way. We want AI to tell us when we're wrong, to prompt us with better questions, to push us to be more thoughtful and reflective and inquisitive. And so that's the intelligence that I'm interested in building and supporting in the world. And I think we don't have a great model for that yet. And I worry that we're going to have to go a little bit too far in the wrong direction to see like, oh no, and go back and fix things. But we certainly, I don't think we're following the right path by trying to create AI perfectly in the human image. Similar with robotics. And you and I think I've talked about this a little bit. I think we're following the same path with robotics development in the world, where we're creating these humanoid robots that walk around and stomp around like humans. And it's like, why that design? Why not a wheel? Why not something more efficient? Why it's become robot theater. And if you really were optimizing a robot for a warehouse or for painting your home or some other job, it actually wouldn't look like a human. And so what are we building?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've had that conversation so many times, and yeah, robot theaters is kind of a nice way of putting it. But that's also a bit of a arms race and theatrical show just for clicks and views and investment and all of that stuff. Because to your point, if you are doing specific use of a robot, it's not going to look like a human. We are not the best designed to do most things.
Yeah, I wish we would just allow ourselves to get out of the way. I think we're playing God a little bit too much and trying to create these new technologies in our own image. And I wish we would just go back to design first principles a little bit and think about what serves the best good in the world from a design perspective.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, my view on the humanoid side of things is eventually it will be a great form factor for general purpose use. Yes. And then will they have like other end effectors instead of hands and all of that? So great, because the world is designed for humans. But to get to that point is so far away. I still think personally it's very far away for a lot of reasons, right? Battery power, the models, even the hardware to some extent, with most use cases, and then safety, right? But like people say, well, the world is built for humans, our cars for us to get in, the offices we work in, our homes, our stairs. So a humanoid factor is, at the end of the day, probably great to have in that respect. But, price point has got to come down significantly. Safety, reliability, power, all of this stuff needs to be improved. And it's probably more likely than not just a money pit at the moment for a lot of these investors.
Yeah, so, and if we're worried about AI finessing us, imagine when that AI becomes embodied in a robot.
Yeah, into a very capable robot that we've designed to do all the things that we can do. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, back to Bloomscroll just quickly before we go into other stuff. You mentioned, this empowerment algorithm and that you're going to be curating content. And I did like my own little experiment, because I got to that point where I was like, I'm sick of it every time I open my social media that I'm just like getting sold to, or, that I'm being fed stuff to just keep me in here. I'm not seeing either the people that I want to see or, the learnings that I want to learn. So I made another Instagram and I just followed specifically stuff that I thought was like, educational, informative, empowering for what I believed. But after a while, it knows that, and then it starts trying to sell you other stuff, or recommend other things. So, what do you think about like that, and what's the secret sauce that you guys are going to be putting in place to make sure things like that aren't happening?
Well, the reason why that's happening is again because it's this engagement algorithm. It's like how long can the metrics are off, right? The win for the Instagrams and the TikToks of the world is like, how can I just jack up your screen time as much as possible, right? And keep you on this app for as long as possible. And so it's going to continue to take what it knows you like and find you infinite permutations of that sort of thing. And like, is this the next rabbit hole that Greg is going to go down? Like, we think so, let's bet on it, And so we need to run a completely different model. We need to be a subscription-based model, so that from the get-go, the incentive model is appropriately aligned. I think more and more in the future, people are going to be more than willing to pay for curated content, to just be like, I just want to pay to know that everything I see is like, I consent, and I want to put good, nourishing content in my body, in my mind, right? Like your diet it's your mental diet that you're taking in. And Whole Foods never would have taken off if we didn't have this whole like organic local food revolution and health craze that everybody went on. I think the same thing is about to happen with the information and the content that we're putting into our minds, because I think we all just feel the constant overload and the hyperstimulation that we're all in. And so I really would like to turn, like, the phone's not going to go anywhere. Like we we use these things, like people have tried to make dumb phones, like you've seen the Cricket phone and all those different things. And like, God bless the people that have switched to those. I don't know how they do it, because I still have to live in the world and be on WhatsApp and to make my life work. So I don't think the phone is going anywhere. I don't think, video-based content is going anywhere, but it's like, can we change our relationship to that thing? Like, I truly believe that presence and attention are sacred. And so can we create Bloomscroll that's some type of digital ritual for people, where this is an empowering thing they do for themselves, where they feel informed and inspired and uplifted, and not like they're in an endless pit where they're never going to get out. It's like, the app should exit you out and make you feel great. And you're like, okay, on with my day. Right. And so it's like, what if social media became this more of a spiritual tool for us rather than a surveillance tool that's like mining from us? What if it was giving to us?
I love that. You have to be so, from a user standpoint, just so aware of what's happening to you, though, because you mentioned, making this like a ritual. Social media is, maybe not a ritual, but like it's a part of just someone's like everyday routine, where they wake up. A lot of people wake up and the first thing they do is open their social media, right? Before they've even like got out of bed, brushed their teeth, anything like that. That's the first thing they do. And then they're like, okay, now I've got a break between my calls. Let me do the same thing again. And I think nowadays as well, social media always plays on FOMO, and then people just being very like nosy in general. They care about what celebrities are doing. They care about what their friends are doing, their family are doing. They're comparing a lot, and it plays into that, which I don't know. Again, this is something that I've thought a lot about, and I get frustrated at myself and at the apps, but you feel worse most of the time after using something like that, instead of uplifted, like you said, or that it was useful time spent or whatever. But it's easy. And in some weird way, it's pulling on something inherently human, whether it's knowing what's going on in the world, or knowing what other people are doing, or comparing your life to others, or whatever it is. And some people just wind down as well, ritually, their day by scrolling endlessly.
Which is so funny to say, like, because it's not a wind down, right? Like, it jacks up your nervous system. Yeah. You
just get exhausted from that, really. And they're like, okay, time to sleep.
Yeah. And then people wonder why they can't sleep or not getting enough sleep.
Properly.
And then it all starts again. Yeah. There's this visualization that I really love called the emotional guidance scale. It's the spiral, and it goes in two directions. And at the very center of it is boredom or contentment. And that's when most people pick up their phones, right? You're like, oh, I've got a spare second. I'm bored, what have you. You pick up your phone, you open it. And social media today, the engagement algorithm is going to take you on a downward spiral toward this comparison, suffering, despair, depression, all of those things, right?
Yeah.
And the goal that we're trying to take is like, okay, people are going to open their phones. They're going to use their phones. How do we create a replacement? Like, I actually firmly believe in replacement theory. I don't think that treating ourselves like junkies, like, oh, I need to put screen locks on my phone or put my phone in a Faraday bag or what all of these other Band-Aid things are that people are creating. I think we actually need a true replacement, because that's the only possible off-ramp for the situation that we've created with social media.
Yeah.
And so if you can create the app where people are like, okay, you know what? I do like this better than TikTok or Instagram. How do we create a replacement for people that takes them on an upward spiral where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so inspired. Like the MVP that I created, I scroll that in the mornings, and it's just like 10 videos that I've curated that I like, that change every day. And after 10, like, I actually don't want more, because I'm like charged up. I'm excited. I want to go live my life and like be like one of those people in the videos that I just watched, because I want to connect. I want to drive impact. I want to take action. And so I've been sort of testing that on myself. And I think the key is to take people up the spiral rather than down it.
Yeah, that's powerful. I like the ideas of 10 you could probably set it, and that could be, a user choice of how many videos do I want to see, like what's my max or my limit. And even that action makes it intentional. It's your choice. Like, I have control over how much I see, how much time I'm going to spend on this, right? My max is that I can stop anytime I want, but it's 10, right? You probably wouldn't put 100.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in thinking about, like, how do we rehabilitate ourselves? Like, we have been dopamine hacked, and the next generation has been like wire-headed from such a young age. Like, you and I actually got the benefit of developing our brains and nervous systems like a bit without all of this stuff.
Before all of this, yeah.
And so, like, we're maybe the last generation to remember what that's like. So I actually feel even more of a responsibility to try to correct that for the next generations. And so it's like, how do we rehabilitate ourselves and create tools that truly are tools and allow humans to become human again? And that's step by step. We have to get back in the driver's seat and remind people that they have autonomy, they have discernment, they have the power. If they don't like something, don't use it. And I know it's so much easier said than done, but I think a lot of people have started to grok the concept of voting with their dollar, right? Like, oh, the thing that I buy, I'm supporting. So I want to buy organic or fair trade or this or that. How do we start to think about voting with our attention? Where I'm directing my attention is like, I am supporting something. And so I don't want that app on my phone, or I don't want to do this activity or listen to this or watch that, because then I'm giving it my energy and I'm allowing it to like extract my time, which is truly the most valuable resource that I have as a human.
Yeah. Amazing. Again, you have to be aware and intentional with all of this stuff, because some people are just going with the motions and never stop to think about any of this stuff. So let's switch gears, because I want to talk a bit about your building and scaling team philosophy and stuff like that, because you've worked in both high growth startups and obviously now leading your own at the early stages. But it sounds like you've got some awesome people involved as well. What's something you wish more founders knew when building a team?
That having execution focused people, like really strong operational people around you, is really important. And like, to find and get those people sooner rather than later, like build the structure early. I think I've had the benefit of working with and knowing and collaborating with so many beautiful visionary people. And I have often been like that operational partner that, grounds the vision and the visionary. But I think I've just seen so many startups where the wheels have come off, mid-growth, and everything's falling apart and coming apart at the seams. And it's so much harder to dig yourself out of the hole the longer you wait to get the right structure and machinery in place. And like, of course, you're going to have to redo it, but have some scaffolding to support you, and surround yourself with the people. Like, be aware, know your weaknesses, and bring some people around you who can fill those gaps for you. Because I do think a lot of founders try to do everything themselves, which is great. You can broaden your skill set, but at a certain point, it's good to know where your strengths are and double down on those, and where your weaknesses are, and find people who have those as their strengths. That's probably a better use of your time than trying to be the perfect generalist.
Yeah, that never really exists. And then at the end of the day, you become the bottleneck. You get bogged down with everything. Yeah. No, it's so true. That's great advice. How do you, as a founder, or even just when you've been in that operational position beforehand, how would you balance shipping fast with like the long-term vision for the company? Because some people get really bogged down. It needs to be perfect before we get it out there, and never release anything to get feedback. Some ship too fast and everything's broken.
Yeah.
Or it's dangerous. Like, how do you think about that?
I'm definitely a recovering perfectionist. And I described this to someone actually yesterday as driving stick. Like, everyone's used to driving automatic, and when you're driving automatic, you're like zooming off in one direction, or you're stopped at a stoplight, right? And so, but when you're driving stick, you have to be doing more than one thing at a time, right? And so the way that I think about that is, how do I make sure that I'm accelerating the way that we need to accelerate, and I'm not allowing what has to get shipped, especially when you have a really important client who's waiting on something, right? Like, you've got to deliver. And so that without exception. But to your point, you need to be building and evolving the structure of the business to get better over time. And so it's sort of like, patting your head and rubbing your stomach. Like, you need to be able to operate on multiple planes. And it's helpful to have people on your team who are responsible for separately delivering against each of those priorities. And so having, operational KPIs that they're responsible for, where it's like, okay, we have this operational transformation plan that we're enacting over the next 90 days. This is what it looks like. This is the Gantt. Here's how we're creating internal transformation. And then it's like, okay, at the same time, we have a delivery team that's responsible for delivering all of this stuff at quality, and they're responsible for that. The ops transformation team is running the other thing in tandem. And so you have the run and you have improve going at the same time. And so you kind of have to split your mind, and it takes a while to cognitively get used to thinking on two timelines at once, or like in two dimensions, but that's how it always worked out well for me. And you have to get over yourself in terms of like true perfection. You have to know what good enough is, and you can't let perfect be the enemy of good, because in this space, especially building in the AI space, even the clients I've worked with, I would sometimes get things from them, legal documents, instructions documents that were totally a mess, had a million errors and things in them. And it would actually remind me like, okay, we're all just doing the best we can do. As long as we understand each other and we're helping each other through this process, that's all that matters. And we continue to try to do better with each turn.
Yeah. Awesome. What, in terms of qualities when you're hiring people, what do you think is important to look for at a company your stage?
Grit is really important. Grit and resilience are really important qualities to me. Is someone values aligned? Like, do they really get where you're coming from and what you're trying to do? And does that emerge from the same place within them? Because if you're coming from two different perspectives at the beginning, you're going to have a much harder time squaring that over time. And the other thing that I always ask in interviews, I was just interviewing someone earlier today, is I always like to ask people what energizes them and what demotivates or drains them. Because it always will tell me immediately, like, is this the right team for them, role for them? Because as soon as someone starts talking about, oh, and I hate doing this type of work and that type of work, and then they start getting lit up about the thing that they love the most, you really understand who they are and the mechanics of them as a person. And I think it's just so important from an organizational design perspective to get people into the right roles for them. That's how you maximize their happiness and their output and the quality of their work and just their retention overall.
I love that question. I wish everyone would ask that to get a clear understanding about who they're hiring, like what energizes you and what like depletes you basically when it comes to work. Because even asking that, and whenever I interview people, I very rarely ask closed questions. Unless it's like, are you currently employed? But otherwise, I just want to give them an open space to tell me about what they've done, how they do it, who they've worked with, what they like doing, where their skill sets lie, because you learn so much more about people. And in the questions that you ask, as a founder or as even a hiring manager, you leading a team, you will know if that person is a good fit because you're aware of what your team structure is, the culture is, the work that they're going to be doing, what the next 12 months probably looks like. And if the majority of that is something that's going to demotivate, deplete, and like disengage this person, they've just told you straight up, like,
yeah, you have no excuses. Exactly. And why not, I always check in with people once they're working for me too. Like, is this still true? Right. Has something changed? Because you always want to be giving people more of the work that they love doing that energizes them, right? Like, why not?
Yeah.
We all need more energy in our lives.
For sure. No, it's so true. It's so true. It's very different than asking like, hey, this is a startup environment. Are you okay with working like that? Like most people are going to say, yeah, sure, in an interview, but you're not asking the important questions. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Switching gears again, you've got this unique perspective, and some of this is selfish because I'm curious myself, but you've been involved in like training companies to use AI. And things like that. What's your current view on the knowledge and or current tools available and utilization with organizations? Because there's such a big emphasis on it, and the people that aren't going to use it or do it properly are going to be left by the wayside or doing themselves a disservice. And then there's other companies that have gone like super extreme. Was it Shopify or
Klarna is one?
Well, one of them was like, you can't hire anyone unless you can prove that AI can't do the job. It was Spotify or Shopify? So maybe Klarna, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was one CEO who sent out a memo recently.
Yes. That's the one.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually thought his approach was really interesting because he was putting out a mandate for everyone. Like, he was basically following that quote that was, humans won't be replaced by AI. They will be replaced by humans using AI. Right. And so, like, are you up-leveling yourself? And that I do really agree with. Enterprise use cases are a totally different animal. Companies that are at scale leveraging AI in a really big way to transform their business are still a bit few and far between, in my opinion. Like, Klarna was a really interesting use case, and I think they've been an amazing sort of case study in the way that they've used AI and what they learned in the process, and they've open sourced that as well. But like, really huge enterprises that are implementing AI, many of them are bottlenecked by their own internal processes, documentation, and data structures. And so, like, step one is just like, where is your stuff? You know what I mean? It's like, what's happening? Where is your data? What does it look like? What are we doing? Let's do inventory, right? And then it's a matter of what processes can be transformed. And so that at the sort of business transformation machinery layer is something that Invisible is great at doing, and is doing more and more of, but it's a long tail problem and solution. It takes like deep consultative partnership with these companies and a long time of being in the weeds together to really figure out how to do this and iterating. I think in the meantime, the companies that are taking the approach of telling their employees, like, you should be messing around with AI and seeing how it can make you better and save you time. I do think that's true. Like, I work with web developers and other devs, and I'm asking them, like, and even designers, like, have you put this through AI? Because I did. I, for fun, wanted to create like a bunch of t-shirts and stickers and things with like sayings that I like, because I made one for a friend and everyone was like, oh, I want this shirt. And so I started coming up with different designs in my head. And then I was like, wait, I wonder if ChatGPT could do this. And it could. It made all the t-shirt designs, and they were actually really good off the bat. And so there's still a world for designers and web developers, even as AI starts to be able to create web pages. But it's just, you're more of the wizard wielding the wand now. And so I think it's like, CEOs are imploring their people to become the wizard. And I think that's actually a good thing, to push people to empower themselves to try these tools, so they don't become obsolete or need to be replaced by people who are being more efficient. But when we think about like AI running your business for you, we've got a ways to go before that's real.
What do you think people can do to better understand what's available to them, or AI tools, or even set themselves or their company up for success? It feels like it's overwhelming. There's so much out there, right?
Right. And everybody's got a tool and a this and a that and another thing. I think starting with the main large language models, like, I'm not going to say a particular one is better than another. Everyone needs to find their one, but trying those out, like the big few, and using them as thought partners is one of the most, I would say, interesting things that you could do for yourself. As much as I was ragging on AI earlier for finessing people, I've also had really positive experiences using AI as a bridge, a conversational bridge with people who might see things totally differently as me. So someone and I recently put our phone in between us during a conversation we were having where I was coming from a very esoteric perspective that they had really no framework for. And ChatGPT was the bridge and created this whole, like facilitated this whole dialogue between us, where instead of us having an argument about something, we were able to immediately understand each other's perspectives. And so I think like there's some fun, creative things that you can do with these models, especially when you have voice to text, so that you don't really have to think about it. Like it's just there recording what you're saying, then you hit send and it can mirror it back to you. And so I think starting just as like a thought partner is one of the easiest entry points. I actually did that with my dad when I was home last. I had a question for him about, we were trying to financial model something out, and he had his calculator out, and like we were like doing it, the manual old fashioned way. And I was like, I wonder if ChatGPT could help with this. And so, he had his calculator. I pulled out ChatGPT and like put in some of the scenario, and we did it in a blended way together. And he was really super impressed by how helpful it was to have ChatGPT like instantly modeling out what we were talking about.
I need to use it more. I say it every day like that. I know I'm missing out, which is why I said selfishly, some of this is a question for me, just from your perspective. But yeah, I feel the overwhelm because I get the newsletters, I'm in the space. So I hear about new stuff and new companies being funded or coming out of stealth mode or new agents and whatever it is. I'm just like, I feel like I need a month to just study and try so much stuff to see what's right for me. But that's great advice. So thank you.
Start small. Yeah. And don't convince yourself that you're so far behind, because in reality, everybody's behind. Like no one human can keep up with the pace of change in this space. So just start where you are today. Give it a try and see whether it's like, make a song or a poem from your random thoughts. Like there's so many creative ways to use AI as a mirror to reflect some part of you back to yourself. And that's one of my favorite ways to use it.
Awesome. All right. I'm conscious of time. And before we wrap, I just wanted to ask a couple of random questions, but I think super helpful, especially with your perspective and also everything that you're doing outside of the company. What's a weird or unexpected hobby, ritual, or routine that you found keeps you really grounded?
It's changed a bit since I'm so on the move these days. But I do like a really weird form of meditation called Kundalini meditation that involves like chanting and moving. And I find it to be really helpful because it directs and harnesses my energy. And so I try to do that every day. I used to be an avid cold plunger. Now it's just cold showers since I'm traveling. But the cold plunges where I don't drink coffee. So I had to come up with something else to shock me awake,
We all need it for sure. Like, yeah, definitely. And you're in India right now, right? What time is it there?
It is 10:30 p.m.
Okay. I thought it was an even more obscure time. So thank you for joining. It's so late. One other thing, if you could get every founder or operator to scroll past one truth bomb coming from you, what would you say if you had that opportunity?
I would say you are the light mirror. I would really try to get people to understand that they are the ones birthing the future. And so where they're putting their time, their attention, their energy, what they're seeing out in the world is what they are creating. And I think that's a really powerful reminder for everyone. And where focus goes, energy flows, right? And so if we're only ever talking about the bad things in life, we're sort of creating more of that. We should be spending more of our time building solutions and creating the new world that we want to be seeing. And so I think the concept of you are the light mirror is something I would want everyone to grasp. Powerful.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for your time, Grace. This has been great. I really appreciate you joining late.
Yeah, thank you.
Joining from India and us getting this on the calendar. I know it's been a while. Where can people learn more about Bloomscroll and about you and keep in touch to see what's coming next?
Yeah, so bloomscroll.com is where people can sign up for our waiting list. And I also have a Substack where I'm often writing about my thoughts in this space, and that's bloomscroll.substack.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And is that the Substack? That's where you were going to publish that blog that you were talking about that you're working on right now?
Yes, on AI is finessing us.
Perfect. All right. We will link all of that in the show notes. And then hopefully you get a lot of people signing up.
Amazing.
But I'm excited to see what's coming next and when this is all public and open, and I can't wait to try it myself. So thank you again. And let's keep in touch.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Greg.